Welcome to the Community Spotlight podcast with my guest Todd Boyer. He is I got to read the title, Vice President of Corporate Communications at the Ohio Mutual Insurance Group. Thanks for being back here.
Thank you for having me, Dave. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Last time you were in a shark outfit.
I was just telling Bill Beard that. I said, I don't generally embarrass myself when I come over here to the station, but last time was probably about as close as I've come. But yeah. I'm sure the ratings spiked when people got a chance to see the podcast with a guest in a shark costume.
Well, there was people, I think, that they were trying to figure out which one was, embarrassing themselves. And usually I win that, hands down.
Yeah.
But that one might have been a close race if we'd have tallied it.
Well, I tell you what, we had a great day that day at Ohio Mutual. Everybody was in costume, and everybody was in the spirit of having some fun in the office. And I thought, why not? I'll just come and do my podcast in costume, and we'll just kind of let the chips fall where they may. Yeah. So it was a lot of fun.
Well, I could tell you enjoyed it, and we got into it, but you always learned don't do an interview standing up in a shark outfit. Yeah. Anyhow, that's the lesson learned from that day, one of many, right?
Yeah, we'll try to be a little more traditional in our approach today. How's that?
Yeah, so having a tail sometimes doesn't help.
Or a fin.
Yes. Insurance industry, a lot of changes going on in the industry. What's going on right now, kind of?
Well,
fast moving.
The last 2 years are in the rearview mirror, and most of the people in my industry are very glad to let them go. They've been very difficult in terms of weather, in terms of costs, in terms of a lot of disruption. A lot of people are feeling that at the customer level as well. People are opening up their insurance bills for their auto renewal or their property renewal and getting a little bit of shock when they see what those renewal rates are. And that's across the entire industry. And that's a lot of factors that are factoring into it. We've had very, very steep inflation over the past couple of years. We've seen the claims cost go really through the roof. We've had significant delays in being able to repair cars, repair properties, just because there's been on and off shortages of labor or materials. All those things get factored in. And one of the things that happens in our industry is when we determine what our rates need to be for the future, we're making assumptions about what the future looks like.
Right.
And when your assumptions are not lined up with the reality, when inflation suddenly spikes out of control, and when you see things happening that you didn't account for cost-wise, it takes a couple years to catch up.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who are looking at their renewal bills right now and saying, hey, I haven't had any claims. Why am I paying so much more?
Yeah.
And it's because the costs for the entire industry and all the customers that we serve across that industry have all risen. And everybody shares a piece of that.
Right.
And if you have a claim, certainly your piece is a little bit bigger. But even if you haven't had a claim, those rising costs are going to be shared across the entire industry. And there are some unprecedented things happening right now that those of us who have been in the industry for a number of years really haven't seen. You see large companies pulling out of states or markets entirely. You see states that are having a hard time providing any options for property insurance or auto insurance, just because very successful, great companies can't figure out a way to do that and still make money.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of roiling in the industry right now that's very difficult. At Ohio Mutual, we're part of that to some degree. When we look at our Midwest competitors, they're struggling even more than we are. We've had 2 years of finishing in the red, which is not very frequent for our organization. But when we compare ourselves to what's happening with our peers, we're not as bad as most of them. So it's not a lot of comfort to be able to say, hey, everybody else is deeper in it than we are, but we're working hard to try to keep ourselves afloat. We're not in any financial problem by any means at all, but we save money for these kinds
right.
of times. But it's been a little bit of a difficult challenge for the last 2 years.
Well, I think of things when you speak about the inflation, everything kind of, and then we had all these various things happen, and like you said, labor costs are up, replacement of parts, or like if you got to replace a roof, doors, everything. Come on, folks, go out to Home Depot or Lowe's or one of these places like that, and you'll see the prices of everything have went up. So naturally, if you're a policy owner and it has to be replaced, it will be represented in your policy. It's just, unfortunately, it's the way it is, but it is, economics works that way.
Yeah, and when we look at the forecast for our industry, most of the forecasts for 2024 are predicting that things will kind of get back to maybe a break-even point or close to it. A lot of that's going to just depend on factors we can't control, like weather.
Yes.
If the weather cooperates, then we're going to be able to kind of get it back to that break-even and then look to start putting money back into the bank,
Yeah.
maybe in the next year. But we save a lot of money, we invest it, we have that money set aside to make sure that when we have these kinds of weather patterns and these kinds of circumstances, that we have plenty of money to take care of the promises we've made to our customers.
I always say statistically, it's an aberration. These things kind of, when you go along and then this was the norm, and then now you got a couple of years ago this way, so it's not the norm, so it's an aberration in the basic things. And this is what's happened, and obviously, like you said, it takes time to adjust that, because it's just the way it is. The turning radius of the Queen Mary isn't on a dime, and it's the same in this industry or any other industry.
Yeah, and despite the financial challenges, we've still not lost any momentum in our efforts to try to stay ahead of the needs that we have organizationally, to stay cutting edge with our technology. Even in a tough environment last year, we were able to accomplish a number of things that were kind of on our top of our list for replacing some aging technology platforms, bringing in some new capabilities, and all of that momentum is still very strong.
So you got some careers that may be open, so they could check that out?
Yeah, so there's a lot of folks who have 20, 30, 40 years sometimes of experience and knowledge, and they're off to retirement. And it's up to us to find some quality folks that can come in and learn from them before they're heading out the door for warmer climates or whatever they're going to do in their retirement, and get those folks lined up to fill those spots and then to carry the company forward. And we've hired some really great folks in this past year, and we've got a lot of momentum.
Well, and you've got your annual member meeting coming up in March, don't you?
We do. So every year, mutual insurance companies like Ohio Mutual, we have an annual meeting where our policyholders can participate by voting for members of the board of directors or other issues that may come up. And so we do that usually about every mid-March, the second or third week, and that's going to be in Columbus at the Polaris Hilton this year. And we're going to have an opportunity to be able to kind of put the final punctuation mark on 2023, and then turn our attention to what's ahead of us in 24 and beyond.
Right. That makes a lot of sense to me. Any other corporate activities or things we might want to talk about in the waning moments of this podcast?
Yeah, one of the things that we have always prided ourselves at Ohio Mutual is our ability to impact the communities that we're involved with. Yes. And we have just a number of great partnerships that have continued even in the face of some challenging business environment. We have employees who are volunteering their time. In fact, this Friday we've got some folks going over to an elementary school in the Mansfield area, and are going to be passing out meals for every kid in that school for the weekend through our partnership with the Children's Hunger Alliance. We have a history of an annual event with the Ronald McDonald House here in town with the Hullabaloo for the House, and the one that we did this fall raised a record level of dollars to support families who have critically ill children and need a place to stay when they're in Columbus with their kids at Children's Hospital. Our United Way contributions from our associates are hitting record marks as well. So everyone who's in the industry is working hard. Our employees are very engaged in the community. There is a lot of positive anticipation for what's in front of us, and so we've got some good things going, and I'll be looking forward to being able to talk to you about those next time I'm in.
All right, that sounds good. I want to thank Todd Boyer, the Vice President of Corporate Communications at the Ohio Mutual Insurance Group, for being the guest on the podcast. Always fun to get an update from you. I know things change a lot. Some people say, well, insurance, that doesn't change much. Stick around. It's always changing. Things always change. And I always thank you for sharing your time, and I thank you for Ohio Mutual Insurance Group for being a good corporate citizen.
It's certainly my pleasure, and it's a wonderful organization to be part of.
Thank you.